The worst fucking diet of the year has yet another study saying it's fucking awesome for you. Take that, motherfuckers. Goddamn mainstream media talking shit all the time. Well, another study has been brought to my attention about the ketogenic diet and its benefits for diabetics in particular, which being that there is a huge, like 70-something% of people that are pre-diabetic in the United States alone, let alone whatever that statistic is in the world. I think that means it's pretty much good for 75% of Americans. I contend it's good for everyone, but we need to, work the media into accepting this. So let's see how the worst fucking diet of 2017, according to the experts, let's see how the fuck it does. So this study was brought to my attention by the fact that I've liked the page David Ludwig. Ludwig works with Dr. Lustig, and he also has a book out. I'm not getting anything for promoting him, but I will say that he has popped up in my news feed quite a bit with interesting articles in science journals and studies. And if you are the kind of person that likes to read that shit, I would suggest you add him to your like list. But anyways, one of his posts pointed me to this study from Nutrition and Diabetes. The 12-month outcomes of randomized trials of a moderate carbohydrate versus very low carbohydrate diet in overweight adults with type 2 diabetes mellitus or prediabetes. So like I said, that's the majority of motherfuckers. There's a lot of pre-diabetics out there. There's a lot of diabetics out there. It's not too hard to figure out which fucking category you fall into, Sorry, I keep saying I've been trying to work on not saying fucking over and over again. And shit. Now, to go over a little bit, a moderate carbohydrate diet is kind of a whole foods based approach. You're not a fat adapted fat burner like you would be on a ketogenic diet. You are taking in anywhere from 100 to 200 grams of carbs. About 50% of your daily intake is coming from carbs on a moderate carbohydrate diet. That being said, that is not the same as a standard American diet. So let me make that distinction right there. The other part of this is that moderate carbohydrate diet was calorie restricted in a 500 calorie deficit for the duration of the 1-year study. So I'm going to go through the study a little bit and talk about some points that the study makes, and we're going to see how we're doing in terms of the study, and I will be critical of it because I know the people who are attacking this are going to be critical, and I will address some of those criticisms and how I think we need to improve going forward with further studies. Dietary treatment is important in the management of type 2 diabetes and prediabetes but uncertainty exists about the optimal diet. We randomized adults 34 with glycated hemoglobin, HbA1c, greater than 6%, and an elevated body weight BMI greater than 25, which, by the way, I'm 0.9 greater than 25, so I can relate. I would qualify for this study with the exception that my A1C is not above 6%. Above 6% is pre-diabetic. You're on your way. You don't want to be that high. So anyways, they elevated, by the way, BMI to a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet. That means most likely under 20 grams. Or a moderate carbohydrate, calorie restricted, low fat diet. So carbs and protein with a minimal amount of fat. Which is what a lot of the healthy diets that beat the ketogenic diet in that little stupid fucking ranking that the media threw around for a few weeks and has seemingly been forgotten for now. You know, they don't want too much attention on the subject because then we'll start to look into it and see that there's evidence that says it's a good diet. All participants were encouraged to be physically active, get sufficient sleep, and practice behavioral adherence strategies based on positive effect and mindful eating. At 12 months, participants in the low-carb ketogenic group had greater reduction in HbA1c levels. That means their blood sugar improved. At 12 months, participants in the low-carb ketogenic group had greater reductions in HbA1c than the moderate carbohydrate calorie-restricted group. Participants in the low-carb ketogenic group lost more weight than participants in the moderate carbohydrate calorie-restricted group. The low-carb ketogenic participants experienced larger reductions in diabetes-related medications. That is huge. They are bringing their diabetes under control without fucking pills. But wait, there's more and shit. Of participants who took sulfur or something or other dipeptide drugs and shit, at baseline, 6 of 10 in the low-carb ketogenic group, that's not everyone, but most of them, discontinued these medications compared with 0.0 of the moderate carb calorie restricted group. And moderate carb calorie restriction is what the standard of care for diabetes treatment has been and still continues to be. I anticipate change coming soon, hopefully. And it should also be noted that there were diabetics and pre-diabetics on the moderate carb calorie restricted diet that had to start taking diabetes medication while they're in the fucking trial. You know, this diet's supposed to help, and they had to start the meds during the trial. There is a bunch of studies, and if you know, I'm going to link this study in the description of this video. It's a very good read, and at the bottom of this study is a laundry list of studies about the ketogenic diet in the references and the benefits thereof. Now, the first flaw of this study that I believe that people will focus on that oppose the ketogenic diet is the fact that it was only 34 participants. Now, granted, it was a year long. That is a nice length of a study. You know, we need a 5-year and a 10-year to back it up, but to see people coming off of their diabetes medications and normalizing their glycemic control in a 1-year period and outperforming eat less, move more, eat healthier, you know, low fat, moderate carb, calorie restriction, which tanks your metabolism. I don't know how many fucking times I have to beat that horse to death, but metabolism's going. If you're in that calorie restriction, you'll plateau out and your BMR will be 500 calories less. So basically you'll be eating maintenance at 500 calories less than somebody who didn't calorie restrict. And you're going to be hungry the entire fucking time. Hunger is going to be the driving force in your life if you're constantly in a deficit and eating carbs and sugar especially. It's like, I don't understand. It's like a no-brainer. You know, when you eat sugar and carbs, your blood sugar rises naturally. This is known. Insulin drives it back down. This is known. So does it not stand to reason that if you are trying to control your blood sugar, that you should not eat carbs and sugar? To where you should put ketones in the place of blood sugar to fill in the gaps when your blood sugar drops. That's why you don't need to carb up or sugar up on a ketogenic diet, because ketones are doing their fucking thing. They're taking care of when your blood sugar starts to drop so you do not become hypoglycemic. Ketones rush in to fill in the gap for your brain, for your tissues, for your muscles, for most cells in the body. And they are a more efficient, clean-burning, abundant fuel source in your body. We all have plenty of body fat, even people of normal body weight. We are carrying around a lot of energy for a rainy day. And we never let it fucking rain. You know, we're walking around in a fucking tank to protect us from the rain when we got an umbrella, you know? It's kind of a shitty metaphor. That's all I could come up with. It's been a long day. And this study has a whole lot of data comparing the two as far as body weight, triglycerides at 12 months, a noticeable drop on the ketogenic side of the house. See, low-carb ketogenic group. And an increase on the carb burner side. People who are eating moderate carbs and calorie restricting have more fucking triglycerides floating around in their blood. That's part of the ratio. So what happened to HDL? HDL rose. It was a slight rise, but it rose with the ketogenic diet. HDL did slightly rise with the moderate carb diet. LDL was higher with the moderate carb diet, the low-fat diet. I'm going to start calling it the low-fat diet because it's basically what it is. It's a low-fat, moderate carb, calorie-restricted diet. So I'm just going to call it low-fat, calorie restriction, which is basically what that is. And, they're having higher LDL. LDL is what everyone's afraid of. What kind of LDL is important? But if you look at the HDL triglyceride, this right here is the most accurate predictor of heart disease throughout the studies that have been done on the subject. It's the only correlative number to how often you will have a heart attack with a higher triglyceride to HDL cholesterol ratio. So you want this ratio to be lower. Well, guess what? The fucking ketogenic diet, after 12 months, the ratio goes down. They become healthier. And the low-fat diet, calorie restricted, moderate carbohydrate, went up. Now, this is moderate carbohydrate. Imagine what the fucking the standard American low-fat diet is doing to you. or the high sugar diet, we should call it. The evidence is here. The numbers are there. The data is there. So there's heart disease, an improvement in biomarker for heart disease, on top of the improvements of reducing or eliminating your diabetes medication, getting your blood sugar completely under control, essentially, if nothing else, putting diabetes into remission. So there's 2 chronic diseases that are improving your chances of not getting them, or even reversing it if you already have it. But no, we're going to give you drugs to do this, to try and do this. Same thing with the blood lipids. You're going to get statins to try and fix it. When clearly you can make dietary choices that'll do the fucking job and not spend thousands of dollars on prescription drugs for the rest of your life that only work in 4 or 5% of patients. It's ridiculous. I'm so pissed off at Big Pharma and their stupid fucking pharmaceutical commercials that are on the fucking TV 24/7. Fasting insulin. I found this one to be pretty interesting. So obviously the fasting insulin of the moderate carb, calorie restricted, low fat diet is a bit higher than that of the ketogenic diet, but not by much. I'm not seeing enough of a difference there for that to be an issue. So they're making insulin normally when they're fasted. That's the thing. And you're making a little bit more if you got more carbs and less fat in your life. So there's really not much in that data, but I found it interesting that there wasn't. I would think that the ketogenic diet would have a lower fasting insulin because you are generally in a lower insulin environment in a ketogenic diet. But if you eat a lot of meat, you are getting insulin responses. Meat and protein does cause an insulin response. So if you eat a lot of meat, you are just as much in the high insulin category as the sugar burners. However, that insulin is not shutting it all to your fat cells. It is taking amino acids to your muscles for rebuilding. It is doing other things. It's not just storing shit. It's storing shit too, you know. But it's putting away the food you ate. It's shunting the amino acids into your muscles for rebuilding, and it's storing fat in your fat cells. It's driving the energy to where it needs to go. Because you're not going to burn it all right when you eat it. It's also helping refill your muscle glycogen at the same time. So there's that. Diastolic blood pressure went down in the ketogenic diet group. It also slightly went down in this group. So there's really no difference in blood pressure between the 2 diets, which is, you know, the opposite of what everyone tells you. Oh, you're going to have a grabber, you're going to have heart disease, eating all that fat. It's all, no, it's the same. No difference. Systolic blood pressure, slightly higher in the low-carb ketogenic group, but I would say not statistically different. As in, it didn't make a difference if you were keto or not in your blood pressure, according to this. And, you know, that's also interesting to me, that it should have made a difference. I think it should have made a difference. But keep in mind, these people aren't fasting. They're eating all the time. It certainly has made a difference in my blood pressure. My blood pressure has come down into normal, healthy levels. So, you know, something to keep in mind. You know, there's interesting little tidbits in here. I would like to see a larger study over a longer period of time to really lock in the optimal diet for preventing chronic disease. But nobody's doing that homework, apparently. Now, here's another interesting thing. Even though the moderate carb, calorie restricted group was in a deficit, they ate less calories overall, noting that it was at baseline when they started. This is before anybody was on any kind of diet, that one group was already eating less calories than the other group to begin with. But if we look at the final 12 months at the average calorie intake, you can see the ketogenic dieters were eating a lower calorie diet than the moderate carb, calorie restricted people are. And I could tell you that the ketogenic people, they were not hungry. The calorie restricted people were. So they ate a little more. And the other thing that's not going to happen on a ketogenic diet is a massive drop in metabolism. Because although you're consuming only 1,500 calories, you are burning off the rest from your fat cells very easily. There are no cells in your body going without energy. That's what reduces metabolism, is cell starvation. If your brain, your muscles, or any cells are not getting the energy required, or not enough, your body shuts the metabolism down so that it can conserve, because it thinks you're running low on energy. And this happens in obese individuals with hundreds of thousands of calories of fat stored on their body. And they're essentially starving because the fat cells are more insulin sensitive than the tissues, because the overflow of fat into the tissues has caused insulin resistance. And so the energy gets shunted right to the fat cells and doesn't go into the cells that are starving for it. And you still are even more hungry. This is, the endocrine system is powerful. And you can't be fucked with that easily. Your metabolism is not easy to overcome. And when you tank it, you are putting yourself in a bad position. You'll have to fucking struggle to get your metabolism back up. There is a higher amount of protein, this goes without saying, on the ketogenic diet than in the low-fat, moderate carb diet. And the protein sources, I do believe, were a lot different. They ate lean cuts of meat, I do believe. This was not a vegan versus keto challenge. So you can put your pitchforks down, vegans. You know, this is versus a normal recommended diet, the low-fat diet. And here's another significant paragraph here. The results suggest that adults with prediabetes of non-insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes may be able to improve glycemic control with less medication by following an ad libitum, that's eating whenever the fuck you want, very low carbohydrate, that's under 20 grams, ketogenic diet, compared to a moderate carbohydrate, calorie-restricted, low-fat diet. Additional research should examine both clinical outcomes and adherence beyond 12 months. I can tell you there are clinical outcomes already being recorded. There are doctors treating patients with the ketogenic diet. They are getting them off their medication. They are essentially curing the, for years touted, uncurable diabetic disease. And where's the headlines? One of the major diseases of our time. We have a fucking cure for it. Where's the headlines? Why do I have to see them on an obscure blog post from doctors fighting the good fight instead of fucking mainstream media and news feeds and blog posts across the fucking internet celebrating that we have fixed diabetes? Because I believe we have. Show me the proof otherwise. Show me this randomized controlled study where fat, in a high-fat, low-carb diet, ketogenic-style diet, show me the study where a ketogenic diet causes diabetes or causes it to get worse. I hear vegans shout this shit at me all the time, and it's just not fucking true. There's no study there. If you eat keto your whole life, you will not have diabetes. Period. If you have diabetes and you switch to keto and eat it the rest of your life, you will not have diabetes. Period. Concluded. There is enough studies. And if you look at this link and look at the references, you'll see even more studies that you can see that show, not to mention the clinical data that's out there. Period. And if your doctor's telling you otherwise, you need to send your doctor back to school. Or find a doctor that knows their shit. Discussion. 12 months after baseline, participants in the low-carb ketogenic group evidenced greater reductions in HbA1c and weight than did participants in the moderate-carb calorie-restricted group. In addition, the greater reduction in HbA1c in the low-carb ketogenic group occurred despite greater reductions in glucose-lowering medications. The strength of our trial was that few participants dropped out after 12 months. However, the ability to generalize from this study is limited in its relatively small size, which is a true story. We need a larger study. We need more of a length of time with a larger amount of people. Let's get the funding together. Let's make it happen. Come on, scientists and shit. Which did not allow us to perform subgroup analyses. And, you know, I would like to see a large 1,000-person study on this level. And we have the population of sick motherfuckers that we could do this with. And I think if you tell a diabetic and offer them the chance to get off their medication, that they might jump at the chance, along with the health improvements, unless they're just so hopelessly sugar addicted that they don't give a fuck. They'll take their medications, they'll risk all that. But for people that want to get better, this is a very strong tool, and it doesn't cost a fucking thing. Well, the food might be a little more pricey. How much are you saving on medical costs? And if not for you, how much for the subsidized health care that you may be receiving? How much are you saving the government or the taxpayers if you cure diabetes? How much better will our healthcare system get if we don't have the cost of diabetes? Isn't that worth it? Isn't that worth fixing our healthcare system? Because that's what's broken. We got too many sick motherfuckers and not enough money to fucking pay for it all. And we're getting deeper and deeper in that fucking hole. And we need to do something about it. And the great thing about this is it empowers us, as long as we get the information to make a decision, to do something about it, to prevent it, or to treat it if you have it already. And a lot of us have had it already. I was pre-diabetic. I reversed it. I'm good to go. Whenever I check my blood sugar now, 75. 75 solid. That's a good solid number. I have no worries about becoming diabetic, as long as I stick to this lifestyle. If I go back to sugar and carbs, I'll go back to pre-diabetic. If I go back to sugar and carbs, I'll become diabetic. I will become obese. I will become morbidly obese. I know this. I can't go back. And that's what a lot of people have trouble reconciling. They think that that's the normal way of eating. That's the way we're supposed to eat. And they want to go back. But you can't. Because we're not supposed to eat that way. So basically, you know, I don't know how many more times I should even have to go over this. I feel like I'm always informing new people of these things. This knowledge is out there. So please check out this study. And also, if you scroll down to the bottom of that study, you are going to find a laundry list of studies, all of which illustrate to you that this shit works. What else is there to prove at this point? And I can tell you from what I've observed by diabetics who stuck to the ketogenic diet that their numbers do improve. They don't improve overnight, by the way. They spend a long time in the 120s and 130s if they were hitting the 200 to 300s. So they may require a little bit of management to get down there if you've already become diabetic. And that's where the medical supervision is advised. Find a doctor that's into this, that wants to treat it this way instead of just giving you pills, that wants you to get off the medication. You know? And you should heed that advice. Get off the meds by doing this diet. Now, you have to stick to it. You can't have fucking shit tons of cheat days if you're diabetic. You know, it may sound nice. I've been good for a week. It's time to fuck off on the weekends. Not if you're a diabetic, you're not. Not if you want to get off those meds. Not if you want to not suffer complications of diabetes. You have to commit. It's a lifestyle change. It's important. I'm pleading with diabetics who can't stick to a ketogenic diet, especially, that this is the cure for your disease. We have it. But no one's telling you. Nobody, when you go to the hospital, is going to say, oh, by the way, you know, this ketogenic diet, that works pretty good. Maybe you should do that for your diabetes instead of taking all these fucking pills until the pills stop working and we have to give you insulin and so on and so forth. But, you know, keep eating the carbs and sugar. Oh, and by the way, stop eating meat and fat because we think that that's causing diabetes and shit. I mean, really? Where do they come up with that bullshit? Show me the study that's based on. I have a newly formed research page. Go ahead and put it on to that. And we'll get into that in a minute at the end of the video. So keep an eye out for stuff like this because there's a lot of data here in this study and there's a lot of anecdotal data on YouTube. There's a lot of data everywhere, you know. Blog posts, before and after pictures. Doctors have a lot of clinical data now because there are doctors that are treating diabetes patients with a ketogenic approach. Some of them have been doing it for 25 fucking years. Successfully. We don't hear about that shit though, do we? No. It's the fucking keto diet's the worst fucking diet ever. That's what we hear. We don't hear, oh, the keto diet cures diabetes. Yay and shit. I don't hear that. Why? Because it flies in the face of the way that they're trying to manipulate the diet, and that's in a low-fat, plant-based, high-carb diet. That's what that is being pushed for us to stay on, because there is where the money is. There is still a big resistance to animal-based foods. There is a big resistance to high saturated fat. Even though the science, as far as I'm concerned, is there and proves without a shadow of a fucking doubt that saturated fat, when taken away from the context of a high-carb diet, is healthy. Now, I am not saying that you should eat shit tons of saturated fat while eating shit tons of carbs. One or the other. If you are on a high-fat, healthy fat diet, you need to lower carbs, or you are risking a health problem. And the reason you're risking the health problem is if there are carbs in your life, you are a carb burner. And if you are a carb burner, you do not have access to that fat that you are eating. That fat that you are eating will be stored, and when that storage is full, it will spill out into the tissues. And this is what the vegans are citing, by the way, when they talk about fat causing these things. When it's really the fact that there's carbs there. You took the carbs away, the fat wouldn't do shit. But the point is, in a high-carb, carb burner situation, if you eat the level of fat of a ketogenic motherfucker, that fat isn't going to get burned. You're not going to use it. When you're fat adapted, you use every last bit of it. Efficiently. Feeding your body. And then when you run out, you switch immediately over to your fat storage. Not the case with a carb burner. You have to burn through your glycogen to start to get to your fat. And then when you do, you're still not getting enough energy because you're not efficient at metabolizing the fat. Especially if you've been in a high insulin 6-7 meal a day motherfucker. Constantly eating. So it's important to keep in mind that while fat is healthy, it is not healthy in the context of a high-carb diet. I do not advocate switching back and forth like every other day either, because you're not doing yourself any favors. You're a carb burner because you ate carbs. You have to not eat carbs or low carbs for a lengthy period of time of 6 weeks before you can efficiently switch back and forth. If you're eating lots of fat and lots of carbs, you're going to have lots of chronic disease. You're going to have more diabetes. You can't mix the two. That's why it's high fat, low carb. If you lower the fat, you have to raise the carb. If you lower the carb, you have to raise the fat. You can't have a high fat, high carb diet. And you know what diet fits that profile the most? High fat, high carb? The standard American diet. And even worse, a lot of the high fats on a standard American diet are vegetable based and cause even more fucking inflammation than you are getting from the carbs and sugar. Keto is a low inflammatory diet. It helps reduce inflammation. And then when you throw fasting in the mix, you're winning. That, for diabetics, I do understand that there are people who can't get on board of keto, because of the sustainability issues or because maybe they just don't like the food. But if you're treating a chronic disease that will eventually kill you while destroying your fucking quality of life, while taking all your money out of the bank in hospital bills and medication bills, I think it's time to reevaluate whether or not you should be on a ketogenic diet. You'll save yourself a world of pain and a shit ton of money in medical costs. It's one thing if you're not worried because you're aesthetically pleasing, I guess, and you don't feel the need to be keto. And it's going to catch up with you in the end at some point. It's just a matter of luck at that point. But you're playing a slot machine where the house is stacked against you at that point. And if you don't want to play the game, you need to stack the cards in your favor by being ketogenic. If you don't want to be in the medical treadmill, ketogenic. It's the way to go. Now I want to take a moment to talk about some new shit that's going on ScottTheTruckDriver.com. As many of you know, I recently started a podcast. The link to the store will be in the description. And inside that store, you can either tip if you found this video entertaining and enlightening and want to help support the channel and continue the content and the time I put into this. You can tip, or if you don't want to, tip just for the sake of supporting the channel, but you want more content on top of the YouTube channel, I've started to do a podcast, and this is the second week of it. I put episode 2 up today. It's only $2 for a download. You're getting 2.5 hours of content. The new podcast is about my intermittent fasting journey and everything I've done up to this point, and where I'm going in the future with the fasting part. I beat the keto thing a lot, and I am a strong advocate for keto, but I'm just as strong of an advocate for fasting. And even if you didn't do keto, you could still do fasting. But I talk a lot about fasting and the standard American diet in this. So if you are doing a standard American diet with intermittent fasting and thinking that that's the solution to your problem, I highly recommend listening to this podcast. So that is available now. Also, if you look over here on the left-hand side, submit research or success stories. And I'm already getting submissions. It's only been up for an hour. But you can come in here and, a lot of you do this in the comments. And the problem with doing that is it's hard for me to keep track. If you submit research, as in articles I should read, videos I should watch, shit I should, try and make a video about, or any other contribution of knowledge to this channel, because I am just one person. I can't research everything. I'm not, all-knowing, all-seeing and shit. It's nice that people do this, but it's not organized enough for me to get to everything. I feel like I'm missing out on articles and good videos. Like sometimes I won't read it until like fucking a day and a half after you posted it, when it might have been even pertinent for current events and stuff. And I kind of want it all funneled into one area that I will look at first before I go to I'm still going to go to the comments and still going to see shit pop up in my news feeds and in my feeds and attribute them for that. But if you submit to the research page, you can put your name in for the credits. Doesn't have to be a real name, whatever name you're comfortable seeing float by in the credits at the end, or even mentioned in the video itself. What the subject is, why are you submitting it? I'd like to hear your interpretation of the study, what it means to you, what you think, you know, the study is about. I might not agree with your interpretation, but I would like to know your interpretation, and I'd like to share your interpretation, because there might be other people that share your opinion, or, you know, you might want to hear my reaction. It's kind of like a conversation about the research you're submitting. And then, of course, it goes without saying, link the research. Or if you are trying to tell a success story on the channel that you would like me to share with the world, you can also submit it through this form and link to a video or audio recording or pictures that I can get to and put in the video. And by doing this, you are giving me permission to do that. To where, you know, I can tell your story, and I believe if we can get more people to see how you guys are improving, and you guys tell me all the time and you send me messages, but I'm probably one of the only people that see it, or maybe a couple people who do read a lot of the comments. But if you want to get it out to everyone, your success and your happiness with this lifestyle, with intermittent fasting, with keto, or both, doesn't have to be keto, it could just be fasting, and, you know, I'd like to hear that too. I want to hear that. This is anecdotal data that needs to be shared with people. Share your story, share your pitfalls, share what you did. You could record a video or audio if you don't want to write all of this, and send it here, and I will review it, play parts of it, maybe not all of it if it's long, definitely not all of it, and give you my thoughts on the subject and interact with you, and together we can expand our knowledge. This is completely optional. I just know that there are people who like to research and like to bring my attention to what they've, you know, discovered article-wise. Sometimes you guys send me things that I've already seen, I've already done videos on, I've already talked about, and that's fine. But I like having the list. And at some point, I do want to take the research list and put it together in a link page that people can go and click these links and research themselves for themselves, so that they don't just take my word for it or even your word for it. They can go for themselves and get this information, which is what I'm a huge advocate of. Free thinking. Don't let people tell you how to think or what to do. Figure it out yourself. So that is there. Of course, we also have the Scott the Truck Driver's daily motherfucking blog, and I do write in this Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, but I'm trying to get better about not working weekends, because I need time off or I'm going to fucking lose my shit. So here is ScottTheTruckDriver.com, the daily blog. If you like my Facebook page, you'll also be able to see when I post on the blog, in case you don't want to check the website every day and you just kind of want to know when there's something new there. I am working on the live stream section of my website, so I will be posting a schedule here at some point. There will not be a live stream this week. I got too much going on Thursday and Friday, and I'm busy producing videos and content Monday through Wednesday, including this very video. So is that. I mentioned in my podcast today that I was going to be doing an interview. That interview has been postponed by the people I'm supposed to interview, but I will be trying to get them in an interview soon. But for now, we got to wait for the interviews. In the meantime, I will film some other videos that I need to address topic-wise. But remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just a fucking asshole. Which is why I have a research page and shit. It's why I'm doing this. So please like and subscribe for more shit. And I'll make more shit. And also available, and I don't like advertising it because Patreon pissed me off. I know some of you have asked, is there a subscription-based way to contribute to the channel? Yes, Patreon is still up. Yes, I will put the link in the description, but it is only for people who are donating to the channel, who want to support what's going on right here. There's going to be no reward tiers, and basically you just want it to come out of your card every month instead of individually coming into ScottTheTruckDriver.com and tipping, which is the preferred way I would like for you to contribute to the channel. But I did leave Patreon up because there are people who want to use that platform to contribute to the channel. It's where they're comfortable, so I didn't want to force them to leave by deleting Patreon, and essentially probably lose those contributions altogether. And because of the user contributions is why I'm able to do as many videos, research, podcasts, live streams, all of that. It's how I'm able to do it for as much as I do. And as long as we continue this, I'll keep making the videos, and this is my primary fucking job right now. And will continue to be so unless some shit hits the fan or something. So, and I'm prepared for that if that happens. But for now, enjoy. Thank you for watching and shit. And have a nice motherfucking day. And shit. Fucking get on the keto diet if you're diabetic instead of that fucking medication shit. Talk to your doctor. Say, look, show them the study. Bring the study in. Say, hey, asshole, with the pills. Come on, here's a study. Tell me what you think, doctor. And the doctor might be like, it could happen. Time to find a new doctor if that's the case. Or he might be like, oh yeah. Well, we're going to keep up the medication, but try this and then come and check with me while you're doing this and blah, 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 blah. And he'll know to cover his ass because if you lower your blood sugar and then the medication lowers your blood sugar, you could have a problem. So it's important to get your doctors on board if you're already a diabetic and on medication. Some people ignore that advice and just do it on their own anyway, and monitor their own blood sugar in the process. And, I don't advocate that. You should have a medical professional involved if you are that deep into being a diabetic. If you're pre-diabetic, you're fine. You're not on pills yet. You can do this. But if you're already being managed by medication, you do need a doctor. And that's another disclaimer I'm throwing in there. Have a nice motherfucking day again. And shit.